Hi, fellow Muppet fans. We're glad you're here. Welcome back to Moving Right Along, a Muppet movie podcast brought to you by toughpigs.com. This is the podcast where we watch the Muppet Christmas Carol 2 minutes at a time and talk about it a lot. I'm your host, Ryan Rowe.
I'm your other host, Anthony Strand.
And today our guest from last week is back. We're very happy to have her with us again. Guest, who are you?
Brule the Minstrel. No, it's
Brule. Welcome back.
It's Becca Petunia from toughpigs.com.
Yes, thank you for joining us once again. And today Becca is with us to talk about minutes 57 and 58. Yes, that's correct. Of the Muppet Christmas Carol, in which we meet Bob Cratchit's family, and Bob and Tiny Tim do some scatting on their way home.
Yeah, I can't believe that you have me back on now, and now I have to actually talk about Muppet characters, like Muppet Show characters.
Actual
like
familiar
Kermit,
Characters.
Piggy, Gonzo, Rizzo, Robin the Frog.
Yeah, who are these guys?
Why am I here?
Do you want to leave?
Yeah, this is the second episode in a row where you've said one of Sam the Eagle's catchphrases.
Why am I here?
You just said, why am I here?
Exactly.
So last time when we ended, Gonzo was just starting to say something about the ghost of Christmas present, about the spirit's sympathy. So here he finishes that thought. Perhaps it was the spirit's sympathy for all poor men that led them straight to the home of Scrooge's faithful clerk. Because as we started talking about last week, this is the thing. Scrooge is so unsympathetic and so wrapped up in his own money and his own selfish, greedy little world that he just seemingly didn't even know that Bob Cratchit had a family, didn't know anything about him, didn't know where they live. It's just Scrooge is in his own little world.
Right.
So Gonzo, well, I was going to say Gonzo and Rizzo. Gonzo is a chimney sweep now. We previously saw Gonzo and Rizzo as lamplighters. Much like a character from the movie Mary Poppins Returns. And now Gonzo is a chimney sweep, much like a character from the movie Mary Poppins.
And those two movies are of the same quality, right? Like, we can agree?
Same quality. Yes. They are.
I don't think I can even pretend for the sake of a joke.
I mean, here's the thing, is if I like a movie already, and then they make another movie that doesn't do anything new or interesting, but just reminds me of the movie that I like,
same formula.
Then it's just as good.
Anthony, here's what you're forgetting.
What?
In the second one, you turn turtle. There's a whole song about it, about turning turtle.
That is true. I turn turtle and I go to the Royal Dalton Music Bowl or something. And then
it's better because
there's like a song about how instead of a spoonful of sugar, there's like a song about how taking a bath is useful. And instead of Let's Go Fly a Kite, they do a balloon song.
Balloons.
Anthony, we love it when Ernie sings songs about how taking baths are useful. Duty Duck is the best song ever. So why are we complaining? Mary Poppins Returns, best movie.
If Emily Blunt sang Duty Rubber Duck in Mary Poppins Returns, I would like it much better.
That seems like something that might happen on Sesame Street, right?
Yeah. That'd be great.
Emily Blunt has been on Sesame Street, I think. Yeah,
probably. That sounds right.
Anyway,
so yeah, Gonzo's a chimney sweep.
In this movie, Dick Van Dyke does not play a chimney sweep. Gonzo, as Charles Dickens, plays a chimney sweep. He gets to work while he's doing this narration, but Rizzo is mostly interested in the smell of a goose being roasted in the fireplace. Downstairs, the smell is wafting up through the chimney.
He can smell the goose, so he knows it's not made of wax. So he's excited.
Right. He's even more excited than he was about the fruit. Yeah. He just wants to eat this goose.
Here's a quick question that I actually wrote down. I've never eaten goose. Rizzo is going crazy about this.
He really is.
Is goose, have you guys eaten goose?
No, I have not.
Good?
So I wanted to make a goose for my birthday this year.
Huh.
My birthday is in December. That's like the goose month. That's like the goose eating time.
Of course, we all know December's the goose month.
I went to my local grocery store, Hy-Vee, and at the Hy-Vee, they had geese, like for Christmas.
Oh.
It was $122 for a frozen goose.
Whoa, wait. So how much at the same store would it cost, just for perspective? How much would it be for a chicken?
I mean, like a whole chicken, like a frozen chicken?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know that a duck is about 30, 35.
Yeah. Okay,
so a chicken's probably like $15, $12.
I guess a goose is bigger.
Less,
yeah.
Usually a goose is bigger.
Yeah, it was about twice as big as a duck.
Story.
It was about twice as big and about 4 times as costly, you know?
Anthony, can you describe that compared to the size of Bean Bunny? Because that's how I measure the size.
I don't remember. I surely should go back and like see how much the goose weighed. But yeah, it was 122, so I didn't get it.
Yeah, go in with your measuring tape, put it on the scale.
So like, excuse me, employees. I was hoping to purchase a Christmas goose, but I need to know the price per pound.
Yes, exactly.
But so you like goose, is what you're telling me.
I've never tried it. I wanted to try a goose, yeah.
You wanted to see, yeah, if you would be as crazy for it as Rizzo.
If I'm going to spend that much on a goose, I just want to go to a restaurant and pay for an expensive goose meal and not have to prepare it.
Yeah. Right.
You shouldn't have to cook it yourself at that price now.
Yeah.
This is not like when you got quail's eggs for the Great Muppet Caper scene with John Cleese, and you were able to just go and affordably buy a dozen quail's eggs.
I mean, quail's eggs are expensive, but it was like, I don't know, man. Eggs are up so high now these days. I'm sure quail's eggs are like $18 a dozen or something. I haven't looked. But I do eat a lot of pickled quail's eggs. I always buy them at the giant candy store when I go there. And Roz thinks they're gross, but I think they're the best.
All right. Well, Rizzo thinks the smell of this goose is the best. And he just can't get enough of it. He's sticking his head in the chimney. I mean, side note, we've talked about this before. Rizzo has probably or possibly met a few talking Muppet geese in his time. So it's that weird thing about Muppets wanting to eat live animals. But Scrooge asks the spirit, "This is Bob Cratchit's house?" The spirit says, "How do you know that?" And Scrooge says, "You just told me." And the spirit says, "Well, I'm usually trustworthy." And he does this gesture with his arm, and it's very funny, and I like it a lot.
Like, the ghost is not absent-minded in the book at all. That's like it's not a thing, you know?
Huh, okay.
And it isn't even really in this movie all that much. But I think that
No, not really.
Right, but I think that the body language, like, of that, like you say, the way he moves is kind of like turns towards Scrooge and says, "I'm usually trustworthy," makes it work so well. It just like that's the payoff, you know?
And it allows the ghost to retain control of the situation because he still kind of seems like he knows everything.
Right.
I do just want to say real quick. So one thing that always bothered me about this scene is Rizzo is smelling the goose, and the goose is cooking. We're going to get to it in a second. Gonzo is cleaning the chimney while the goose is cooking in the fireplace.
Oh, you're right.
Like, it gets super gross. We even see, again, we see the soot falling on the goose at one point. Like, this poor family. Again, it's good that Scrooge brings them a turkey bigger than Bean Bunny because, like, why would you? No, that sounds so gross to me. Like, don't eat that goose.
Because Gonzo and Rizzo sort of exist in this space where sometimes they're in the story and sometimes they're not in it. And we're going to see in a minute that when Rizzo is inside the house, nobody reacts to him. So maybe the soot exists on the plane of existence that is not in phase with the Cratchit family. So it does not actually affect the goose.
Sure.
I don't know. That's my best theory on that. But anyway, they Scrooge and the spirit look in the window, and we hear somebody absentmindedly singing to themselves. Scrooge says, "Who's that?" And the spirit tells him that it's Mrs. Cratchit, of course. But is it, of course? Because the Muppet character that they have cast as Mrs. Cratchit, the wife of Bob Cratchit, this housewife,
Mean Mama.
Yes, it's Mean Mama.
I was going to say
Can
Miss
you believe
Mousy.
it? Miss Mousy. Miss Mousy would have been a more obvious choice.
More obvious.
Because this, right? Character-wise?
Yes, more obvious.
More in character. Because this is Miss Piggy. This is Miss Piggy, the breakout star of the Muppet Show, the star of television, film, and magazine covers and calendars. And she's here making her first appearance in this Muppet movie at about 56 minutes and 37 seconds into the movie.
Yeah. Well, what I love about Miss Piggy, we've talked about in TV specials, Miss Piggy got increasingly elaborate entrances, right? She's
I wrote this
coming down a flight of stairs. Yeah, all that stuff. But what I love about this is that obviously they can't do that here. They'll do it in the next movie. But so what they do give her is the exact same introduction that they give most of the cameos in the Muppet movie, right? Whose back is to the camera? Turn around. It's Steve Martin. It's Richard Pryor. It's Bob Hope. Whatever, right? Yeah. We see them back to the camera, turn around, that's who it is. It's exactly what they do with Miss Piggy in this movie.
You're right. Yeah, it's like, who's that? And then, and then you could applaud if you were so moved.
They treat her like she's a cameo guest star.
Yeah, it's the famous Miss Piggy.
Yeah. And that's fine, man. I like to see her. I think she's good in this.
Oh yeah, it's great to see her. I've never counted, but I assume this is her latest entrance in any of the Muppet movies.
I think Treasure Island is later.
It might be over an hour because that movie's longer than this one, a lot longer for one thing.
Huh. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out.
We'll have to see. So 56 minutes and 37 seconds.
Although in that movie we do see a photo of her on Kermit's desk earlier, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Which might be kind of a way of like, let's assure the audience Miss Piggy's going to be in this movie. Here's a picture of her.
In case you doubted that Miss Piggy.
Well, she's on the poster, so.
I mean, she plays Ben Gunn, a character who should be played by George the janitor. So.
Sure.
Or Martin Short.
Martin Short is so funny in Treasure Planet.
Oh, in Treasure Planet,
he's so good in Treasure Planet. He's so good. I mean, Martin Short's always the best, but this is not a Martin Short podcast.
No, and we'll probably talk more about that next season when we're talking about a Treasure Island movie.
BEN next. We'll talk about BEN next year when instead of doing the old Curiosity Shop, I do my regular segment where I say, "Here's what happens in Treasure Planet."
Right. I hope so.
I love that movie.
I do too, actually. I mean, Musker and Clements. Come on.
Yeah.
And we see Peter in this scene.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to mention too. When we get to this part of the movie, I often think of the page about this movie in the book Jim Henson: The Works, which has a few pages near the end about some of the projects that happened after Jim Henson's passing. And when it talks about this, it mentions that Miss Piggy is astonishingly but effectively cast as the dowdy Mrs. Cratchit, which is a pretty good, concise way to summarize her role in this movie. It's astonishing that they did it, but it's effective. And also in that original making of TV special, Kermit says, "It's working out very well to have Miss Piggy play my wife, Emily Cratchit, but I just want to say 3 things. This is only a movie. This is only a movie. This is only a movie."
That's pretty good.
Which, it's the usual, like, what's going on with Kermit and Piggy, but it's a pretty funny joke.
Right.
Yeah, I can imagine that being executed well. I mean, it's the pig of the 90s. This is what became of it, I guess.
This is what was left over.
Speaking of Miss Piggy's name being Emily in this movie, Mrs. Cratchit does not have a name in the book, is not given a name.
That's interesting, especially because Fred's friend Topper had a name.
Right.
Dickens loves naming things.
Clara, Fred's wife, does not have a name. So I think that Dickens loves a name, although Fan has a name, right? Fan has a name, Scrooge's sister Fan, after Dickens' real life sister, as we discussed earlier. Anyway, Tough Pigs Forum member listener Annie, suggested, so I have to give her a shout out, that she suggested Bob and Emily Cratchit might be named after Bob and Emily Hartley, the characters played by Bob Newhart and Suzanne Plachette on the 70s sitcom The Bob Newhart Show.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's the case, but it's certainly an intriguing idea, and I sure hope so, because I love that show.
Yes, I like that theory, and it does not seem like a stretch to imagine that Jerry Jewell, say, would have enjoyed The Bob Newhart Show.
Right. Well, and as we discussed a few episodes ago, the Muppets appeared with Bob Newhart on a TV special to promote this movie.
Oh, yeah. Everything is connected.
Yeah.
So in the kitchen, Miss Piggy as Emily Cratchit is apparently hard at work on Christmas dinner. She does, I gotta say, she looks pretty good in this Victorian costume with her bonnet on and everything. And as Becca was alluding to, she is admonishing her son Peter to keep turning the spit to roast the goose. Peter is a frog, performed by David Rudman.
So when I met David Rudman in 2010, I don't think I've told this story on the podcast before. When I met David Rudman at an event in 2010, I asked him to sign my Laserdisc copy of Muppet Christmas Carol. And on the back, just like on the VHS tape, it has that picture of the Cratchit family, like, with Scrooge gathered around the table. Peter's in that photo. So I asked David Rudman to sign it by Peter Cratchit. And he said, "Which one's Peter Cratchit? Did I play him?"
Well, so I do want to say, a couple things about Peter Cratchit. So first of all, I'm learning from Muppet Wiki, because you always got to read Muppet Wiki, that according to the back cover of the 1993 storybook, A Merry Muppet Christmas Through the Window, Peter Cratchit is played by a frog named Simon.
I did not see this.
The Muppet frog, Simon Frog, plays the character of Peter Cratchit in the same way that the Muppet frog, Robin the Frog, plays the character of Tiny Tim.
Wow, that rules.
Also, apparently on the 2012 Blu-ray, Rizzo claims that Peter is played by Peter Frog.
Oh.
So I guess he's Simon Peter Frog, and he's named after, two apostles at once.
Those are the same apostles.
Are the same?
Yeah.
It's the same. I was just about to say that. As soon as I said it, I was like, no, wait, that's the same.
That's the name.
But he's a frog prince frog by the best I can tell. I did look back at old screenshots from Frog Prince and from Mary Louise's Frog Glee Club from the Muppet Show, and I'm not confident he's there, but it might just be differences in color grading between the 70s and the 90s. Again, these are the kind of things that I focus on, but he's a Muppet Frog. He probably is one of the ones from Mary Louise's Glee Club.
Likely.
I'm just not noticing.
Right. Well, and I was going to also say, I don't want it to sound like I'm knocking David Rudman for not remembering Peter Cratchit, a character that he had played. At that time, it had been 18 years since the movie came out, and he has 2 lines in that role in this movie.
Yeah, and also he has played hundreds of Muppet characters in his career.
Right. So it's not like I was like, yes, sir, you did play Peter Cratchit. How dare you forget?
No, and one thing that we have learned,
it's like something he did at work one day 2 decades earlier.
Exactly. Yeah. We know about a lot of these things more and in more detail than the people who worked on them, because it's their job. Certain things stand out, but they're not necessarily as obsessive as we are going back and rewatching them and looking for all the details. For example, watching a movie like this 2 minutes at a time. I don't think David Rudman would ever do that. So,
right.
Well, if he would, he's going to hear from our lawyers.
Yeah. Take that. So, Emily Cratchit, as presented here, is a pig, and Peter Cratchit is a frog. We'll get more into this very soon, but this is getting into the question of what would happen if Kermit and Miss Piggy have offspring, which has been explored, and there have been jokes about it a few times over the years. In our season of the podcast about Muppets Take Manhattan, we talked about an early draft of the screenplay for that movie that would have had an alternate fantasy sequence. Among other things, they would have shown Miss Piggy pregnant and then in the hospital having given birth to a baby frog, and then pregnant again, and then in the hospital having given birth to some baby pigs. So at some point, I guess they decided that like if Kermit and Piggy have kids, some of them are just frogs and some of them are just pigs.
The way that I always sort of hand waved it is that this movie is very clearly like the characters playing roles. Like we see this at the beginning when it says, so like there are no frog pig hybrid creatures because Kermit and Piggy aren't married and don't have kids. So they cast, their good friend Simon Frog
exactly
to play this role because they couldn't cast a pig frog hybrid monster. Like that's the way that I kind of always hand wave it as a person who thinks too much about
no, well, yeah. So Miss Piggy, the actor, did not give birth to the other actors we see playing her children in this movie. So, yeah. And then the other thing just to add on to that is, we have seen pig frog hybrids in the fantasy sequence in Muppets Most Wanted, and that was also very funny. So the goose smells so good. This is what Peter Cratchit says. Miss Piggy, we then see her looking at herself in the mirror adoringly, and she says, "It does, doesn't it?" And she strikes a pose.
Such a funny line reading.
Such a good line reading.
Yeah.
This is what Frank Oz brings to the table. And I love Eric Jacobson, but this is what Frank Oz brings to the table that no one else can bring to the table.
Yeah.
Again, I love Eric Jacobson. He's a great guy. He does a great job performing all of the characters that he performs.
Yes.
But like, no one can be Frank Oz. And this kind of line reading is exactly why no one can be Frank Oz.
He just knows how to wring every drop of comedy out of everything. And this is just, it's a small role, but Miss Piggy is going to make the most of it. She's making it her own. So, meanwhile, back on the roof, Rizzo is still just obsessed with the smell of this goose. He leans down into the chimney a little too far, and he falls down the chimney. I really like the sound effect when he's falling that kind of just goes thunk.
Yeah, that's funny. And then Grover pops up and asks some kid, "The rat follows him down the chimney?"
How does Rizzo get into homes that don't have chimneys? So Gonzo's...
It depends on what plane of existence he's on.
Yes. Well, maybe that's the answer to the question of Christmas Eve on Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Santa Claus goes out of phase with our plane of existence.
Right. But of course the answer is that Rizzo comes in with the relatives at Thanksgiving and hides in the laundry.
Right. Great. Love that. I want to go watch Christmas Eve on Sesame Street now.
Always a good idea.
Yeah. Gonzo's not amused by this. He says, "Oh, good grief," which again, Gonzo playing the straight man to that wacky guy, Rizzo. Gonzo says, "I knew you weren't suited for literature." It's pretty funny.
It's such a good line. And it's such
that's a line that I'm surprised we don't see on more like fan stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like you see like Light the Lamp, Not the Rat and stuff. Like it's such a funny like insult to use for any reason.
Yeah. Maybe we should all start incorporating it into our real lives. I knew you weren't suited for literature.
I mean, I'm an English teacher in my professional life.
It would work. Yeah, and actually, I'm just thinking like my wife and previous podcast guest Stacy just told me that she's not sure she can finish her book before her upcoming book club meeting. So what I should have said in reply to her is, "I knew you weren't suited for literature."
Yeah.
I'll have to remember that next time. Cut back to the fireplace. Rizzo falls down from the chimney and lands on his feet on the goose. He's relieved at first because he's landed on something soft, but then he realizes that it's hot, 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 hot. And he does this little dance.
What he says is, "Hoo, hoo, ha, hoo, hot, 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 hot."
Oh, thank you. I neglected to write down hoo, hoo, ha, ha. What was it? Hoo, ha, hoo? Hoo, ha, hoo. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
So, in preparing for this episode, I realized that I did not have any notes on how this effect was done of Rizzo dancing on the goose, because we see his entire body. We see that he's casting a shadow behind him. We see the entire fireplace. The goose is spinning. So I asked some of our Muppet fan friends if they had any insights. Our friend Joachim, who is a professional puppeteer. He's actually a Muppet performer on the Dutch production of Sesame Street. So he knows his puppets. And he said he didn't know for sure, but he noticed that the shadow on the back wall looked unnatural. Rizzo, he says, Rizzo, the goose, and the whole skewer system are lit from the front. It's one steady shot, so there's room for a digital effect there that's not too difficult for the 90s. It could be the case that Rizzo, the goose, and the skewer are performed in chroma key and composited into the fireplace. The shadow, without any puppeteer arms or rods sticking out of Rizzo, could be the same shot of Rizzo and the goose and skewer turned digitally into a silhouette. It may seem like too much of a modern Photoshop technique, but they did do that silhouette thing all the time on The Storyteller, which is a few years before this. So I like that theory. Our friend and past podcast guest, Grant Harding, who is also a puppeteer, agreed with this theory. And our friends Eric, Joe, and Tony said similar things. Then, at the last minute, before we were recording this episode, I just kind of said, wait a minute, what if Brian Henson actually talked about this on the DVD commentary? And I just forgot to write it down. So I checked the DVD commentary, and he did. It goes by very quickly, but Brian Henson says, this is a complicated little gag. Rizzo is shot on blue screen, and the chicken is shot on the blue screen as well, and the rest is on the set.
I can't believe Brian Henson forgot what kind of bird it was, though. It's not a chicken.
He does say chicken.
Goose.
Yeah, that's what he says. It's a goose. Yeah, he was there. He should know. But
get out of here, you talking sandwich.
Yeah. So all of that taken together gives us a pretty good idea of how this was done. So there's that. Yeah, and like I said, Piggy and Peter do not seem to notice at all that there is a rat on their goose screaming and jumping up and down. So Rizzo is apparently not visible at this point in the story. Then back to Piggy, who is leaning over the stove, and this is where we meet one of the Cratchit's other children. It's a little girl pig. She is admonishing her mother for eating the chestnuts before her father and Tiny Tim get home. Piggy insists that she was just checking them to make sure they weren't burned.
That line where she's like, I'm just checking the chestnuts to make sure they're not burned. That is so much the Piggy of like the Piggy cookbooks and the Piggy like exercise tapes.
Yeah.
Of this era. And again, it's this subtle difference from like modern Piggy that I do kind of miss. This like, yes, this is how we check the chestnuts, like.
Yeah.
Well, right, but the funniest thing about it is that before she says that, she shoves as many chestnuts as possible into her mouth.
Yes.
Like, yes, we should say that for the audience.
Yeah, it's not like she just is eating and then Belinda calls her out on it and she stops. Belinda calls her out on it and then she shoves them all in there to make sure she gets them all. It's so
she's
good.
checking them. That's how you do it.
That's how you check them.
Yeah. And that's a good point, Becca, because we had like in Muppets Now, there were those lifestyle segments, which were pretty in character for Piggy, but I do suspect that this version of Piggy would have had a different level of participation in something like that. There's
a subtle difference that I can't quite put my finger on quite here while recording this podcast.
Right.
I feel like if you sat me down in a writer's room or something, I'd be able to pin it down.
It's like she's going to be the housewife. She's going to go along with this thing, but she's not really going to do the thing the way she's expected to.
Mm-hmm.
So then she says to her daughter, "Do not shout, Bettina." And her daughter, though, says, "I'm Belinda." And this is Steve Whitmire, for the record. And then another little girl pig enters from the other side of the frame and says, "I'm Bettina."
Oh,
Miss Piggy looks back and forth between both of them. She tries again. I forget who she's addressing, Belinda or Bettina. She gets it wrong again, though. And then she looks at the camera and says, "Whatever."
So the second one is she addresses Belinda as Bettina because then Steve Whitmire sasses out, "Belinda."
Right. Okay.
But you didn't mention that Bettina is Dave Goelz.
Bettina is played by Dave Goelz. Yes.
And it like honestly, for my money, I'm Bettina is one of Dave Goelz's funniest line readings in his entire career.
Sure.
Because it's such a nothing line on paper, but it's like the fact that the first Little Miss Piggy sounds like, Wembley Fraggle doing this Piggy imitation. That's fine. That's funny. But then the second one sounds like Rugby Tiger. And
I think
it's amazing.
It sounds even less like an actual little girl voice somehow.
Right. Exactly. Like, that's what I mean. And it's so funny.
You've talked about this when you had, Dave on the podcast.
The bravest thing I've ever done in my life is do that imitation to Dave Goelz on this podcast. But
but it's so obviously like Steve and Dave trying to make fun of the way Frank Oz performs Miss Piggy.
Right.
And and if you take Miss Piggy's voice a notch further than it already is, you realize how it's completely divorced from what a real person sounds like.
Right.
And that's kind of what's going on here. They're really good at it.
They are. That's the thing. Like, you can tell they're just having such a good time, like, razzing him.
Oh, yeah. And this must have been so much fun on the day that they shot this. And I'm actually was really happy to have a reason to watch and rewatch this 2-minute clip, because this is actually one of those Muppet jokes that I sometimes forget is a joke just because I watch these movies so many times. But just, I don't remember what my reaction was the first time I saw this, but just the first time that you see these two twin pigs come in and they both sound like Miss Piggy, and I don't know, it's hilarious, and I'm glad that it's in this movie, and I'm glad that I got to watch it and rewatch it for this episode.
I kind of wish there was more with Belinda and Bettina, and not just in this movie, but like in the Muppets.
Maybe you know what would have been good if it had been them instead of Andy and Randy Pig. If it was just like
done that.
If it was just like two enthusiastic little Miss Piggies, who aren't idiots and don't mess everything up.
Right, they would have been different character types, but yeah.
Who are like Piggy's acolytes or something,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would have been so much fun to have, again, Steve and Dave as a Steve and Dave as a duo.
Yeah.
Like making fun of Frank Oz like consistently, like that would have been really funny.
Yeah.
To see more often. I will tell you something that you don't know about Belinda and Bettina, which is that, like I said, they're actresses playing a role. And of course, the back cover of the 1993 A Merry Muppet Christmas Through the Window book reveals, and it looks like Muppet Wiki has a picture of the back of this book. Ryan, I'll make sure that I send it to you.
I'm so glad you looked this stuff up.
This is what I do.
Missed it.
The contributors write the wiki, and then I just sit here and read it.
Yeah.
But their names, Belinda and Bettina, are of course played. Bettina is played by Miranda Pig, and Belinda is played by Melinda Pig.
Okay.
They're
Miranda and Melinda as
your favorite characters, Miranda and Melinda Pig.
Now, one of these puppets was reused for an episode of the Muppets ABC sitcom, and what was that character? Was that character's name Alinda?
Alinda, it was named Alinda.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting. So maybe it was Melinda who played Belinda as Alinda.
I hope so.
I mean, I would hope, yeah.
I don't know if I got the whole order correct, but
I will say the Alinda, I don't care as much. Like, I liked that episode a lot. That was one of the better episodes, and the one that I reviewed when we were doing our initial reviews of these. But looking back at it now, I don't love the Alinda design. They made some changes to like the eye placement. They tried to make her look a little more like modern Miss Piggy, and like I feel like modern Miss Piggy's design isn't as good as old Miss Piggy.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
Well, my memory of that too is that you could kind of tell that it was an old puppet. Like, it didn't look like it was in pristine condition.
Mm-hmm. That as well.
And they tried to fix her up a little bit. But I don't know. I guess that character was meant to be a sympathetic character. That's the Unveil the Tale episode,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Where she's like tells Piggy that she's kind of like her role model. And so she has to be a sympathetic character. So I guess that maybe that's part of the reason for any redesign that they did on her. But the design of Belinda and Bettina is hilarious. Like they're kind of weird looking, and that works really well for them.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
So then Scrooge and the spirit hear somebody else singing now, and they turn to look. There's somebody coming up the hill toward the house. It's Bob Cratchit and his son, Tiny Tim. Tiny Tim is, of course, played by Robin, Kermit's nephew, and what was probably the easiest of all of the Muppet casting decisions for this movie. So first I will, just to mention the song that they're singing, they're singing a reprise of One More Sleep from earlier in the movie. Tiny Tim is singing the lyrics, and Bob Cratchit is scatting along as he carries Tiny Tim on his shoulder. This song does appear on the soundtrack as Christmas Scat. And
it rules.
I like it. It's fun.
It's great.
Yeah.
Love this song.
Yeah,
well,
it's
good. The closing credits of Fraggle Rock feature Gobo and Wembley scatting the theme song to Fraggle Rock together.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, this is Gobo and Wembley. It's Jerry Nelson and Steve Whitmire.
Oh,
Scatting again. It's the same two performers doing the same thing. And it
that's great.
Completely rules both times.
Yeah. That's a great observation. So as they walk, we see their entire bodies. We see Kermit walking along up this street, and it really looks like they're moving forward along the city street. Our guest, who will be here next week, has told me that he really loves this shot, and he has some behind the scenes information on this. So I did not look up any behind the scenes information on this.
What I will say is, this shot is so iconic that Palisades made a toy of this shot.
Yeah.
Because they made 6 Muppet Christmas Carol mini Muppets. I have 3 of them. I'm looking at Fozziwig and the Ghost of Christmas Present right now, who are over my computer. But they did make a Bob Cratchit and Tiny Tim, and it's Tiny Tim on Bob Cratchit's shoulder, holding the crutch, like in this scene.
Right. Well, and
that's
and
cool.
there is also in 2017 for the movie's 25th anniversary, the Hallmark Christmas ornament that year for the Muppets, which they usually do one every year for the Muppets, but that year's is the best one ever because it's this scene. It's Bob Cratchit holding Tiny Tim, and when you press the button, it plays the whole song.
Yeah.
I will argue that the best Hallmark Muppet Christmas ornament is the one that I have, which is Cookie Monster and Gonger in the foodie truck.
That sounds great too. I'm not in and have never been into pop culture related ornaments that aren't explicitly Christmas themed. So
that's fair.
But anyways, we have this one on our tree, and my kids love pressing it.
Oh yeah.
I'm
sure. Do you take the batteries out when it's not Christmas? Because
yes,
the batteries can just wear out and leave. Like
you have to.
We do it.
I had a friend who had the Hallmark beaker ornament, and they did not take the batteries out. And one year I was helping them decorate for the holidays, and the beaker ornament exploded, which was very appropriate.
Yeah.
Acid just started leaking out of the bottom.
Yikes. I was just going to say, because they wear out and they leak acid, but okay. So I guess I got to go take some batteries out of some ornaments at the end of this Christmas season. Yeah. Wow. So this clip actually ends. If either of you if you had any notes you wanted to bring up about the shot or how they accomplish the shot, we can get to that.
I just love the little houses behind them. They're these tiny, crooked little model houses. Again, our friend Danny said in My Week with Muppet Christmas Carol that the sets, it might have been our friend Kynan, but in that article said that the sets in this movie look like the version of London that Emmett Otter visited on that Emmett Otter would visit on like his study abroad. And I've always thought about that, and it truly is, because Emmett Otter is like my favorite thing. So it's that same kind of just very like obviously fake but adorably fake aesthetic that I really love.
Right. And both of those productions take place in these worlds that, yeah, they seem kind of fake, but Muppets are everywhere in them. And like you really believe that Muppets live in those worlds. Like we see their full bodies a lot and we see them on street corners and everything. So yeah, it looks great. And yeah, this clip ends with Robin singing either Fa La La or Fa La La La. So we'll have to wait until next week to hear the conclusion of the song. That's all I have for these 2 minutes specifically. I wanted to get into my old nonsense about other adaptations of A Christmas Carol featuring established characters, because we have a few from this scene. Very good. I'm glad you love it.
Who plays Peter Cratchit in Rich Little's Christmas Carol?
So
is it Simon the Frog?
Oh man, that would be great. Rich Little's famous Simon the Frog impression.
It's actually Richard Dawson.
Did he do a Richard Dawson impression?
Not that I know of, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, no, that would be interesting. Okay, in Mickey's Christmas Carol, you can probably guess who plays Mrs. Cratchit.
It is
Clarabelle.
It's Clara Cluck.
That
was my second guess.
Excellent guesses, and I wish they were correct. But no, it's Minnie Mouse, the obvious choice. Tiny Tim is played by Morty Fieldmouse.
It's Morty, not Ferdy. I was going to say, I didn't know which it was.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, this is a thing where, like, because of this special, I always felt like Morty and Ferdy were bigger deals.
Yeah.
And then they don't seem to, like, exist anywhere else. Like, as a kid, I thought that they were, like, the same tier as Huey, Dewey, and
Sure.
Louie. Like,
well, but
they were always around.
It's funny because I think my kids kind of do, because, you know, the newer, like, Paul Rudish produced Mickey Mouse cartoons, the funny Mickey Mouse cartoons.
The funny ones?
The ones that are actually funny.
Yeah. There's a Halloween special, like a half-hour Halloween special. And in that, they're telling ghost stories to all 5 nephews. Like, Donald's 3 nephews and Mickey's 2 nephews are all there, and they're just, like, hanging out, you know? So,
all right.
They're like the whole gang.
I don't even think I knew that the last name was Fieldmouse until I was looking this up. I just thought I knew Morty and Ferdy, but apparently their last name is not Mouse, it's Fieldmouse. And I guess they maybe appeared in a couple of cartoons in the old days, but mostly in comics since then.
Sure, yeah. Scrooge's nephew Donald doesn't have the same last name as him either. So Scrooge
That's
McDuck.
True. Yes.
Yeah.
Duck and McDuck.
Well, that's
Donald's nephews have the same last name, and we've seen the family tree. I have it in a book over there, so I know how this all works out.
Right.
I did a speech on that family tree in speech class as a high school freshman. Like, I'm right there with you, is what I'm saying.
Hey, if anybody hasn't read any of those old Scrooge McDuck books, you know, they're real good.
Yeah.
Huge fan of the life and times of Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah, anything by Carl Barks or Don Rosa.
Here's the thing about Don Rosa. Like, that shouldn't work, trying to take all those Carl Barks stories and, like, because we could talk about this off mic, but Roy Thomas tried to do that at DC.
I knew you were about to say Roy Thomas.
And it doesn't. I love All-Star Squadron.
Anthony,
I love
Anthony, have we thought about Roy? I mean, have we talked about Roy Thomas before? I can't stand him either.
No, I don't. Here's the thing.
Wait.
Here's the thing. I love All-Star Squadron, but it's 100% a mess. It is.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I can't hate, you know, he's done so many good things as well, but like, he drives me crazy with how he tries to connect all of these loose ends in ways that never make sense.
They never make
even with his Fantastic Four run, he's trying to put too many pieces together, and like no one actually cares about like bringing back Mr. Gideon or whatever.
Right. Right.
I literally just read that run last week for the first time.
So in superhero
and I
comics,
had the same reaction, like, okay, I see what he's trying to do, but this is just not necessary.
In superhero comics, this guy Roy Thomas, as we've alluded to, was obsessed with trying to make every comic in first Marvel and then DC fit together into continuity. This was like his goal in life, was to make
comics
sure
that were written by
everything
different
fit.
writers at different times who did not care whether the stuff they were writing matched up with the stuff that had come before.
Right, and he tried this over and over, and it never worked, and it's always a mess. And then in the Disney Duck comics, Carl Barks wrote those for decades, and also like didn't care about continuity, just kind of told whatever story. And after Carl Barks retired, the primary writer was this guy named Don Rosa, who did the exact same thing that we just said Roy Thomas did. He wrote this 12-issue miniseries called The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, the goal of which is to make a coherent timeline out of those old Carl Barks comics. And somehow it hangs together beautifully. And there's no way that it should work as well as it does. Like, somehow he makes it work that Scrooge both had rich ancestors and grew up poor. Like, has a castle and was a shoeshine boy. And he spins it all into this tapestry that makes sense. And it is a genuine masterpiece. And I don't know how or why.
And Scrooge plays Scrooge in Mickey's Christmas
That's
Carol.
true.
Exactly. So there
Also
you go.
in Mickey's Christmas Carol. Yeah, we could go on and on about all that kind of stuff. But, okay, so Peter Cratchit is played by Ferdy Fieldmouse, unsurprisingly, perhaps. Martha Cratchit is... So apparently there's some question about who this character is, and I did not know about either of these two Disney characters until I looked this up. Martha Cratchit, the daughter, is played by either Millie or Melody Mouse, who are Minnie's nieces from the comics. It's possible that I've read a Millie and Melody story before, but I did not remember that these characters existed. So one of them plays Martha Cratchit. In the Flintstones Christmas Carol... do you want to guess who plays Mrs. Cratchit? If you remember who played Bob... Actually, it's Mrs. Craggett, who played Bob Cratchit. Yeah, of
course. So it's Betty Rubble.
Yes, it's Betty Rubble.
Right.
Tiny Tim is played by Bam Bam.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting twist, because instead of being frail and sickly, he's got ungodly strength.
Yeah,
Right.
you know, I have not actually watched this thing, and now I feel like maybe I'll have to at some point.
I'm sure I've said this. It was, do you guys remember Dinner and a Movie on TBS? With Annabelle Gurwitch and Paul Gilmartin? They inexplicably featured Flintstones Christmas Carol with like baby back brontosaurus ribs or something.
Oh,
And I saw that on there, definitely, in high school or middle school. But that's the last time. I mean, it was 1998 or something. It's the last time I've seen that.
Huh. Yeah, I'll have to go watch it at some point. In the Muppet Magazine parody comic strip, get this, Mrs. Cratchit is Miss Piggy and Tiny Tim is Robin. So
cool.
It was ordained to happen, preordained to happen. And as I believe our previous guest, I think it was Eric Adams, pointed out, the Tiny Tim in Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol looks a whole lot like another UPA cartoon character, Gerald McBoing Boing.
Yes.
This bothered me so much as a kid. And I've not watched... This is an important Mr. Magoo story. I've only seen Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol once because... And I didn't really like it that much. And part of it was because I was like, well, it doesn't have the Mr. Magoo stuff in it.
Yeah, not at all.
And one of the things...
Except for the framing device.
Things that bothered me was that Gerald McBoing Boing wasn't making Gerald McBoing Boing noises.
Right. He's usually just making...
Yeah, he can't. Gerald McBoing Boing can't talk.
Right.
The whole intro reminds you that he doesn't say words. He goes sound effect instead, and it confused me so much. I'm like, why would they don't care about Gerald McBoing Boing? What am I doing here?
Man, I can't believe what they did to Gerald McBoing Boing.
So what I'm hearing is that, nya, Becca shouted, your name's not McCloy, you're Gerald McBoing Boing, the noise-making boy. She shouted that at your TV.
Exactly.
Great. And finally, last but probably least, Rich Little's Christmas Carol. Guess who played Mrs. Cratchit?
Wait, that's Gene Stapleton, isn't it?
Yes, this is Gene Stapleton in the Edith Bunker voice. Therefore, Rich Little as Gene Stapleton, as Edith Bunker, as Mrs. Cratchit.
Right. Which of course inspires the joke as we've discussed the Dana Carvey show sketch, which
have. He does a Rich Little Easter sketch.
Yeah, he does a sketch about Rich Little's Easter special. So that contains the joke where Dana Carvey as Rich Little, as Gene Stapleton, as Edith Bunker, as Mary Magdalene.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. And also in the Rich Little special, you would never guess this one, but it's pretty funny. Truman Capote as Tiny Tim.
Ooh, that is really fun. I like that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
So that is all I have for these 2 minutes. Do either of you have anything specifically on these 2 minutes? Becca, starting with you.
I mean, I just want to say briefly, like, it's interesting, and I'm sure you guys will talk more about Robin and Tiny Tim as we go, but like, I feel like this is probably Robin's most iconic role or thing that he ever did, the most memorable thing that he ever did. I feel like certainly more casual Muppet fans think of him as Tiny Tim before they think of him as Robin.
Right.
Yeah, that might be true, yeah.
Yeah, we should note that he had a top 20 hit single in England, which was halfway down the stairs.
Right.
You know, so maybe it's a little
Hubba-Wha.
different. Yeah, maybe it's a little different over there, but I don't know. He went on top of the Pops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty special, but it had been a while at this point.
Yeah, right. And it's been even a lot longer now.
Yeah. Anthony, anything on these 2 minutes?
I have a couple of things in the old Curiosity Shop. Pretty
Okay,
pretty brief. Like I said up top, Gonzo's narration is adapted from the book. So what Gonzo says is, perhaps it was the spirit's own generous nature and his sympathy for all poor men that led him straight to the home of Scrooge's faithful clerk. And what the narrator says in the book is, and perhaps it was the pleasure the good spirit had in showing off this power of his, or else it was his own kind, generous, hardy nature, and his sympathy with all poor men, that led him straight to Scrooge's clerks. So very similar. I mean, it's one of those things that Jerry Jewell condensed a little bit, but not much, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, this actual scene in the book is basically the same setup. Mrs. Cratchit and her kids are getting ready for Christmas dinner. We're told that, like, Peter is mashing the potatoes and Belinda is helping out, and the two smaller, or the two young Cratchits, they're referred to as both a boy and a girl, are all there. So her 4 kids, and then oldest daughter Martha comes home from work before her dad and Tiny Tim arrive from church. But so there are 6 Cratchit children in the book, and 4 of them have names: Martha, Peter, Belinda, and Tiny Tim. So Belinda and Peter are both names from the book. And then
Martha's old enough to have a job.
And Martha's old enough to have a job, right? She's a teen. She's like presumably close to 20.
She should have been Annie Sue.
She should have been Annie Sue, yeah. And then the 2 younger or smaller Cratchits don't get names. So there you go.
And that implies that they are younger than Tiny Tim, even.
You know, I think so, because it really does just say like the 2 smaller Cratchits, but Tiny Tim's not home yet. So I don't know.
That's interesting. It kind of takes away somehow from Tiny Tim's smallness for him not to be the smallest and youngest of the children.
You just watched the 1984 movie recently, and that's basically how it goes in that. Martha comes home first. I mean, they show Martha arriving home.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they have 6 children.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, one thing I found interesting about that is at the end, Scrooge doesn't actually deliver the goose to their house himself. He pays for it anonymously, and then he spends a long time at Fred's house. He wants to go to the party, but he doesn't actually go to the Cratchit's house. What you found interesting about that adaptation is that it follows the book's structure. Wow. Yeah. Yep. That's crazy because, and we'll get to that later in this movie, but exactly. I can't think of any other adaptations that don't have him going to Cratchit's house. And they usually have the same... I don't think the 1951 movie does either, if I remember. Okay. I think that's on my list.
In the Flintstones one, he doesn't go to Cratchit's house because he goes to Craggett's house. You can write that down. Yeah. That smirk on your face right before you said Craggett. Yep. Oh, man. So good. All right. Okay, I'm done. I'm done, though. Okay, thank you for that. Becca, as you know, we like to ask our guests
questions, which I should know because we ask them all the time. Here they are in front of me now. Do you remember the first time you saw this movie? That's the first question. We'll start with that.
So I don't know when the first time I saw this movie was. And that's not, so I was born a year before this movie came out. I'm younger than you two.
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't really a fixture of our house when I was growing up. Maybe in part because we don't celebrate Christmas, but also maybe just because, I don't know, we did watch other Muppet Christmas things like Muppet Family Christmas and stuff like that.
Sure.
And it just wasn't a huge fixture. My dad loved the soundtrack and we would listen to the soundtrack a lot, but it wasn't something that I watched much. Really, my childhood memories of it largely come from that trailer that you guys have talked about that aired before like Muppet Classic Theater and things like that, that I definitely watched more. I started to watch it more often comparatively recently, like towards the end of high school was when I was like, I'm going to watch Muppet Christmas Carol. We had it on VHS, and I bought the DVD when it came out. And at that point, to kind of get into your next question, which I know you're going to ask, but like I realized that I really liked this movie a lot. And in high school, I became very obsessed with the soundtrack for no adequately explained reason other than that
it's really good. Yeah.
But like I would listen to it year round, not just at Christmas. And I watched the movie more and more. And what I used to say is that I used to say this wasn't the best Muppet movie, but this was the best Muppet movie in the sense that this is the movie that I think is made the best in terms of things like direction and set design.
As a technical achievement.
Yeah.
I think you make that case. Yeah.
And I would now argue, and this is part of my hot take, I think I've kind of settled that this is my favorite Muppet movie.
Okay.
And part of why that's the case is, kind of to go back to what I was talking about last week with Brule and Wander, and part of what I was talking about this week with like the little houses. I really like that this is a movie about a world that Muppets live in. And that Muppets live in with people.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that was always kind of implied was the case, but that we didn't ever see a lot of. It was always with the other Muppet movies, like the Muppet movie, it's people everywhere. And then like one Muppet. It's like everyone at the fair is a person except Miss Piggy.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone at the, Steve Martin is the waiter, but Rolf plays the piano. This movie presents a world that I find so interesting, where it's like at Fred's party, there's Fred and Clara who are humans, and one human, and Wander McMooch, and a dog, and
it's
and
more
2 pigs. It's this really interesting idea and setup that I like. And I think like Fraggle Rock, there's such a sense of like, we are building a world where things are always going on, whether or not they're at the center of the frame. And again, like in the Muppet movie or the Muppets Take Manhattan or Great Muppet Caper, which again, fabulous movies. Like don't get me wrong here. But like what's going on is in the center of the frame. The Muppets are in the center of the frame, and then there's people walking around behind them. In this, there's what's going on, but then like you see, Droop is peeking out of a window, or like, there's look at that. It's George the janitor walking by. Right. And there's that sense of that again is very Fraggle Rock in nature. With like, they're just walking through the cave and there's little, cave creatures.
In every little nook and cranny, there's some kind of Muppet.
And, it's one of these things that is part of why going back and rewatching, like, first 3 movies are so so impeccable that, I don't let that make me think that they're bad movies. But when you go back and watch, Muppets 11 or Muppets Most Wanted, that's one thing that really bothers me, is that they have the potential, you would think, to do this, and they're not. Like you see, like the We're Doing a Sequel song. And yeah, Andy and Randy Pig are up on the rafters at one point, but like there's a whole crowd of dancers and none of them are Muppets. Like, what are we doing here? Like we want to see, we should want to see this world in this setup. So I love that sense of this movie. And I love the really creative things that Brian Henson does with camera angles and with staging and setting, and not necessarily doing everything like on The Muppet Show on TV, where everything is just straight ahead, straight on, we're looking at the Muppets. I told you guys I had too much to say about this.
No, this is great.
It's great.
And it stinks that I don't think Brian Henson, again, he didn't direct that many other movies, but I don't think he ever really succeeded at doing this kind of stuff again, even in Treasure Island, let alone in the Happy Time murders. But I ultimately, what I've been thinking about more and more while listening to your podcast, and what I scream in my car when I drive to work at 6:30 in the morning, and your episode drops, and I, make sure that it's queued up so it starts as soon as your episode drops. What I'm realizing, and it's so interesting because Anthony and Ryan, you guys are, of all of our Tough Pigs writers, I feel like you two are the two biggest fans of the Jim Henson Hour.
Yes.
And
I think that's probably accurate.
I think we might be the world's two biggest fans of the Jim Henson Hour. Us and Grant, our friend Grant is the third one.
Yeah. And my argument is that this movie is the Jim Henson Hour movie.
Oh.
Sure.
I mean, people have said, like, Muppets from Space is the Muppets Tonight movie.
Yeah.
But if you think about all of the things that the Jim Henson Hour was trying to do, things like adaptations of classic stories.
Oh, yeah.
Things like ambitious sets and puppet designs that didn't always look like the Muppets we know. Things like the Omni Gorgon. I know I got his name wrong.
Ultra Gorgon.
Ultra Gorgon.
From the Monster Maker episode of the Jim Henson Hour.
Things like that. Things like putting sort of aside the old characters. We didn't get as much Fozzie or Piggy because we were focusing a little more on the mood or the tone of things rather than like just like, our same old Frank Oz jokes and things like that. Allowing sort of like this sense of world building. And this was part of why I finally went through and watched Dog City, because Dog City also does this kind of thing. These like, again, we are constructing a city and there's always something going on in the background, and there's like jokes written on the wall, and things like that. It truly feels, and Brian Henson obviously worked on Storyteller a lot and things like that, but in a weird way, and obviously no one can say what Jim Henson would have done, right? And it's tragic. He left us too soon. But in a weird way, it kind of feels like Muppet Christmas Carol is what we were heading towards with the Jim Henson Hour. He feels like in the Jim Henson Hour, this is my hottest take.
It's great. This is a wonderful take.
It feels like in the Jim Henson Hour, and a lot has been said about how Jim Henson was kind of getting a little tired of just being associated with the Muppets. Right. And I think you see this movie, and one of the complaints that you hear people make sometimes is like, there aren't enough Muppets in it. Right? The Muppets aren't around enough. It isn't about our friends Miss Piggy and Fozzie, and like, why are we spending so much time with these humans, and why are these ghosts these new weird funny looking puppets. That's what the Jim Henson Hour was like a little bit of Kermit and a little bit of Bean Bunny, and maybe Fozzie would have one quick joke. And then Jim Henson really wanted to show you the Ultra Gorgon, or really wanted to tell you a literary adaptation of, The Soldier and Death. And like, that's what we have here in the Muppet Christmas Carol.
You're right.
Is it really is like an hour and 29-minute long version of the Jim Henson Hour in a weird way. And I really admire, in the same way that the Jim Henson Hour isn't always perfect. I hate to tell you this. I hate to tell this to you guys.
I think we both know that. I don't think either of us believe it to be flawless.
But I admire the level of ambition and the level of creativity and the level of like, we're trying to mix together all of these different ideas about what puppets can be and what stories can be. And I think that this movie is really trying to do those same kind of things, where it's like, what can puppets do? What does it mean to be a Muppet production in a way that I think really only this and the Jim Henson Hour really grapple with? And then after that, they fall back a lot on like, we're going to try to do the Muppet Show again. And, that's what like Muppets 2011 and Muppets Most Wanted are.
And that's what Muppets Tonight is, frankly.
Yeah. And I'm really curious to see what would have happened if we kept trying to take it in this direction, where it's like Kermit and Fozzie and Gonzo are just pieces of this larger creative whole. Because that's what we're seeing here, and that's what we were seeing on the Jim Henson Hour and in Dog City, where Rolf is not the main character. He's just a piece of this larger story about new characters and new, more ambitious puppetry techniques and stuff like that. And sometimes there's an Ultra Gorgon, who I call the Omni Gorgon, which doesn't even make sense.
It makes about as much sense as the Ultra Gorgon.
This has been the hot take that's been gestating in my head this entire time.
Well, I'm for it.
Yes, it's fascinating. But I'm just wondering, do you think there's a version of Muppet Treasure Island that could have continued that direction, or maybe could there have been another literary adaptation instead that would have been a better choice for that, continuing that direction?
I do think Treasure Island is a bit of a misstep. It's my least favorite of the Muppet movies, and I'm sure I will talk about that in a year with you guys, but it's my least favorite. I think part of the problem with Treasure Island is the need for a Jim Hawkins, and that is the weakest part of Muppet Treasure Island, and the part that doesn't quite work, because you can't cast an all-star actor like Michael Caine in that central role, but you also can't cast a Muppet in that role.
Right.
So you're left in the position that we wound up being. I have other opinions about why Muppet Treasure Island doesn't work as well as this, and I think it really is that the scope is more ambitious than they have the ability to create. That because Muppet Christmas Carol all takes place on like 3 city blocks.
True.
It's a little different than trying to shoot scenes on a boat or on a fake tropical island, that they sort of force themselves to not take as big swings. But we'll get to that next year.
Well, although now you have me wondering, like, man, should they have tried something even more ambitious, like Muppet Greek myths, or I don't know, some kind of like weird.
Here's what I'm going to say.
Fantasy.
Jim Henson would have.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
I don't think Jim Henson wanted to just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
No, that's true. Yeah.
I think that's what the Henson Hour is about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
well,
anyway,
that's fascinating.
That's my long hot take. But yeah, it's my favorite Muppet movie. I'm willing to say that.
Great.
Wow. Well, yeah, thank you for that Christmas present. So, that was all the 3 questions. Oh, do you watch it every year at Christmas? That's the other.
Yes.
At the holidays. Yeah, great.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I actually closed my notes because I got so caught up in that. Hold on. All right, then with that, we can wrap things up for this week. Listeners, please make sure you check out toughpigs.com everywhere on the internet, Facebook, Twitter, we think so far, Hive, assuming this Hive thing works out. We want to thank Morgan Davy for our logo. We're on Patreon. You can support us there. We would appreciate that very much. You can go to our TeePublic store. Also, we have some cool t-shirts. A lot of those are really the people are loving some of the new new as of this recording, but some of the Great Muppet Caper inspired, Muppets Take Manhattan inspired, a bunch of new designs.
I designed the Grover one.
The Grover one still our most popular t-shirt. So you're talking about the monster you wish to see at the end of this book.
Correct.
Yeah, people love that one. And if anyone is listening and you would like to own a t-shirt that says, "Be the monster you wish to see at the end of this book" in a cartoon word balloon style, impeccably recreating the style of the monster at the end of this book, designed by Becca, then you should go to the Tough Pigs TeePublic store and get one of those. And you can also email us at movingrightalong@toughpigs.com. Let us know what's on your mind about these episodes, this movie. As of this recording, I am still on Twitter at @MeRyanRowe. I'm also on Hive at @MeRyanRowe. I'm also on Letterboxd at Movies Are Neat. Anthony is on Letterboxd at Zeppo Marxist. You can follow us there. Anthony, I believe you're also on Hive at Zeppo Marxist. You might be posting stuff there.
Indeed. Yeah.
Okay. And Becca, remind us where people can find you and or your stuff on the internet.
Yeah. So best place to find me is, of course, Tough Pigs. I write articles. I do art for that. I design a Grover t-shirt.
Yeah.
And of course, I host Hubba-Wha, a quiz show podcast. Seasons 1 and 2 are out. Season 3 will come eventually. I just don't know when. But I'm excited for it. You can find, I'm all over the place on the internet. Tough Pigs, all the major sites, Goodreads, the New York Times crossword app, Pokemon Go.
Just look around. Yeah.
But, the easiest place currently to find me is Twitter, at Uncle Petunio. Uncle, like the kind of person who would have a nephew, Robin. And then Petunio, which is like the flower, except with an O instead of an A. It's probably the easiest place to find me, and I'll have links to other stuff there as well.
Very good. Everyone should seek all those things out. And listeners, as a reminder, we love positive reviews online. I've noticed a couple of recent-ish ones on Apple Podcasts, so keep them coming. We love that. And please tell everyone about the show, including your twin daughters, whom you can't tell apart. And join us next week for another episode of Moving Right Along. See you then.
Hoo, hoo, ha, hoo, hot, 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 hot.